welcome new and old friends. My name is 242, and tonight I have 3 true scary stories this spooky, scary Sunday. If you want to help this channel, subscribe, check out my merch and Patreon. Now, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. "Let me go," I cried, wrenching my arm out of his grip. "I don't care that the doctor says he can't find a pulse. I just want to go home already." A council worker let slip my house was being scooped for a burglar. By Sturs Kamfel Zerg 1. When I was a younger boy, in my early teenage years, my mom had a family of white Siberian tigers which stood in the living room facing out the windows onto the street. They ranged from small plush ones to a large real-life like animal white Siberian tiger. Usually, they received comments when people passed by, but she had arranged them to stand together like a family. It was winter time, and some of the houses on my street had already been targeted by people with various belongings being stolen, ranging from couches to money in jars to a personalized angel in someone's house, which was made for their daughter who had been a stillborn. There was a council of workers working on a hill corner fixing pavements. Sometimes, if you passed by, they would talk to you for a short period, just to be friendly, since we were young. I was out one night with a friend, and we were talking to them about houses being targeted around the area, when one of the workers turned it into a joke and said through laughter, "If it were me, I would go for the house on my street. They obviously are loaded, man." Knowing we were staying on that street, we curiously inquired which house he was talking about. Then he said quite bluntly and in a matter-of-fact tone, "The one with the tigers in the window. Could make that easy. It always looks empty." I was obviously a young and naive. I didn't fully understand, so I said quite proudly, "That's my house." He stopped what he was doing and just stared at us for what could have been a few short minutes. Then he said, "There you go. You just never know who you're talking to. It's a small world." Then started laughing. I forgot all about this until someone tried to break into our house a few weeks before Christmas. We didn't know anyone personally who was involved, but when they were caught weeks after trying another house, people said it was the council workers who done it. They apparently weren't really workers, but using it as an excuse because no one can remember seeing a van, and they all wore plain clothes and high-vis vests without a logo on the back. Mom always said she wanted to die before her kids. As the doctor read my diagnosis, I realized I'd have to grant her wish myself. Unsettling 911 Call. True Story. By Bernd Schmidt. My cousin was a 911 operator for a town in my city. She had many scary calls and violent situations where people were either seriously injured or even died. Many overdoses, many domestic violence calls, some from the same woman over and over, which was heartbreaking. However, there was one which was still shrouded in mystery, which she claims to be the most unsettling of them all. The call went something like this. 911, what's your emergency? I need the police. What's the address of your emergency? 1234 Laura Hill Drive. And what's the nature of your emergency? There's someone in my room. Can you speak up, miss? It's in my room. Somebody's in your house, ma'am? Something... Can you speak up? It's in my doorway. Has someone broken in? Caller hangs up. She tries to call back, but it just rings. Police arrive quickly. Call was tracked from inside the house of this address. But when they arrived, the lights were out inside and the doors were locked. Police have no cause to break in, and upon checking the windows and doors, there was no evidence of intrusions. They had my cousin continue to call while they tried to listen, but nothing. They wrote it off as a prank call. I'm not sure what it is about this story. It's not outrageous or violent. It's very short and to the point. To this day, it remains a mystery, but something about the way she tells it is extremely bothering. She said it undeniably wasn't a prank call because the girl on the other end seemed terrified. The house was empty at the time and in the process of being sold. Mommy always screams when I show up inside the house soaking wet. She keeps telling me she doesn't want me to die, but I know she hears me crying for help when I was drowning in our pool. Butterfly Effect: How German Engineering Saved Me from Being Murdered by Cecil McKinley. This is going to take me a while to explain everything, so stay with me. It all comes around. My very first car was a dark green 2000 Volkswagen Jetta. It was the most basic of basics when it comes to cars. No options whatsoever except for an automatic transmission. It was $300, slow, dumpy, no right headlight, and drove straight with the steering wheel practically sideways. Every stereotype of a poor high schooler's car you can think of, my car was no exception. Despite it being a piece of German crap, I love that car. I drove it every chance I had. I don't think a day went by that I didn't drive it. I named it Thunder Bunny. She was my baby, my beautiful green baby. But Volkswagens from that generation, Jenna's especially, had a pretty bad flaw in the automatic transmission. I'm not sure exactly what caused it, but essentially the transmission generally got worse and worse until the car would not shift into third gear. And there's not a thing you can do about it there. So, a couple weeks after Halloween 2019, I was going about 30 miles per hour when the engine suddenly roared, and the car wouldn't speed up. I feared the worst, and my fear was justified. My dad, a mechanic, didn't even have hope for my baby. She was gone already, and so, much to my dismay, we started looking for a new car. It only took us a month to find her, a dark green 1999 Volkswagen Jetta. Exactly like my old car, but absolutely everything. She was faster, had heated leather seats, automatic windows, auto sunroof, everything. All except for an automatic transmission. I know how to drive manual, so it was perfect. I had a new baby, from a crackhead neighbor girl to Scarlett Johansson. At least in my eyes. I loved that car even harder, named it Little Boy, and was happy. Okay, I'm about to get to the story, but I have a few more quick things to explain. You can skip this if you want. It's important, but it's not vital to the story. First, for people who might not know, but when you have a manual car, you cannot leave it in gear and take your foot off the clutch. If you do, the car will stall, which is bad. So if you do leave your car in gear, you need to turn the engine off before taking your foot off the clutch. If you don't want to turn the car off or have it turn itself off, you need to put the handbrake or it will roll away. Guess what was the only really broken thing on my car was at this point this story takes place. If you guessed handbrake, you're right. And that was the second thing. No handbrake. Okay, now to the story. I started working as a pizza delivery driver in a smaller growing town in Michigan. It was good money, but every once in a while I delivered to an incredibly sketchy place and have had a few shotguns pulled on me. One night, about 2 months ago, I was delivering on a Friday. Usually Fridays are very busy, but this day was a little slow. So when a delivery came at 8:30 and half an hour before we closed, I jumped on it. I realized it was 7.1 miles away, so all the closing jobs would be done by the time I got back, and I would have been able to leave immediately. It was way out of town in a wood surrounding neighborhood, but again, no work when I get back to the store? Seems like a good deal to me. And I'm all about those sort of deals. And so I climbed in my car and went to drive 7.1 miles away. As I pulled up to the house, I began to get a bad feeling. The house was in a small trailer park type neighborhood next to a lake. The kind that the house are all good distance apart, with likely drug problems, and was completely dark. No lights inside. None inside. There was a single car in the driveway and an open window on the side of the house. I pulled in behind the car in the driveway and sat there for a moment. Something was off. By the house being completely dark, I mean, there wasn't so much as a nightlight that I could use. Usually, when I deliver in a dark house, there's at least a light on the upstairs or something that would signal that someone was awake, waiting for their pizza. But the house seemed dead. Nevertheless, I put the car in gear, turned off the engine, grabbed the small, cheapest pizza we had, and got out. Without my headlights on, there was nothing. I could barely see the house. The only light was the dim moon. I walked onto the porch and past the big open window in the front door. As I reached the front door, I saw it. The door was slightly cracked open, just enough for me to see inside the void of the house. Thinking of every single horror movie I have ever seen, I said aloud, "F that," and hurried back to my car. I am a tall, well-built looking guy, but despite my wide shoulders and baggy hoodie, I am a frail thing. I can barely handle fighting off a small dog. I got into my car and turned on the engine, my headlight illuminating the house, and almost simultaneously, the living room light behind the big open window lit up and a single guy looked out and walked to the front door. I cursed myself and weighed my options. If I went up to the door, I could die. If I noped out of there, I would be 110% chance of being fired. That meant no new car parts, no gas money, no cute dates with my girl, just sitting at home doing virtual schoolwork. It was a stupid choice, I know, but I grabbed the pizza and opened my door, making a choice I damn glad I made. I took the car out of gear and climbed out, mostly so my engine would still be running so that if I needed, I could run back and immediately take off. I walked to the door where the man had opened the rest of the way. As I got closer, I got a good look at him. I'm not one to judge a person based on their physical appearance, but this guy's head was cleanly shaven and was covered in tattoos. He was wearing a pair of gray jeans and a white tank top. He had a scowl on his face and was staring me dead in the eyes. I looked past him for a moment into the house, which was completely empty. As I got close enough that I started opening the pizza box, he started reaching around to his waist. I stopped. He just stared at me with the most evil grin I have ever seen. I knew in that moment that I was about to die. I had always heard your life seems to flash before your eyes. I thought about my girl, that she wouldn't know what had happened. My work would stop delivering upon my disappearance, assuming that my body wasn't ever found. My dad would regret telling me he was happy for me landing this job. God save thee. That's when I heard it, the distant sound of gravel under my tires. My only practically small chance of escape was rolling away. I didn't even look back at my car to know that. I just stared at the man and was about to say, F you, when he looked back at my car. I heard the sound of the car rolling. It was getting closer? The guy's eyes went from the driveway to behind me. I finally looked over my shoulder. My car was rolling backwards and had come to a smooth stop near the mailbox of the house. I looked back at the guy, who had a nervous look. He looked back at me and scowled again and took his hand from around his waist. He reached into his front pocket and took out $12 and handed it to me. I gave him the pizza and watched them slam the door shut. I ran back to my car and practically tore the door off to get in. I looked back at the house and the man was standing in the front of the window, staring at me. You better believe I nearly spun the tires on my way out of there. I kept glancing at my mirrors until I started driving under street lamps. It was easily the scariest moment I have ever had. As soon as I got back to the store, I told my boss about it, and she called the police. We never heard anything about it. I'm assuming they went to the house and only found a small cheese pizza. I started carrying a knife on me at all times, and my boss is considering getting a tracker on our pizza bags. I only recently realized this is sort of the butterfly effect. I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me that my transmission went out, and I cursed Volkswagen for designing such a terrible automatic transmission. But if the transmission was still working, then I would have still had that car when this happened. I would have put the car in park, and it would have sat there with whatever would have happened to me happened. I have zero doubts in my mind that that man was planning on murdering me. So, crappy German engineering saved me from getting murdered. Edit. I'm assuming that when the car began to roll, the guy assumed there was someone inside, backing up to pick me up. The engine wasn't revving, but it was about to murder a person. You probably don't focus on details. Sorry for any confusion. Alice stared at the table in Wonderland, thinking, then hastily gobbled up the cake labeled Eat Me, and washed it down with a potion labeled Drink Me. Her blood-curdling scream was heard all through Wonderland as her skeleton began to grow, but the rest of her body shrank. I do hope you enjoyed these true scary stories this spooky, scary Sunday. Tell me what you think down below. I do love reading your comments. Hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you want to help this channel, there are a few ways. First, subscribe, turn that pretty bell to all notifications, and also share this with anyone you think who will enjoy it. If you want to get something with my avatars on it, check out my merch. 2 different links for 2 different price points. Last is my Patreon, where you get early access and a few other bonuses. Most importantly though, thank you for watching. Come back this Freaky Friday for our day stories. It's going to be legal advice. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.